The Connection Show. Inspiring hope, health, healing. Connecting the dots of your story and transforming your life. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops. The Connection Show. The Connection Show. Inspiring hope, health, healing. Connecting the dots of your story and transforming your life. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops. Live with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing in the world. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today is the amazing Shelly Yorgesen. Welcome to our show, Shelly.
Thank you, Jill. Such a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm really excited. I've been on a few little, I think some events that you've done and listened in. And so I can't wait till the audience gets to know you better. And before we begin, Shelly, I'd love a message to the audience about an amazing event coming to Branson, Missouri, August 19th and 20th at Yakoff's Theater. The great comedian Yakoff is letting us use his theater. And it's going to be called Resilient Bravehearts. For such a time as this, in Branson, the Sight and Sound Theater always hosts amazing biblical stories. And this year, their story is the story of Esther, the courageous and fearless woman who saved the Jewish people from death. And so, in essence, with Esther coming, people are flocking to Branson, Shelly, in groves to see this amazing play, and tickets are selling fast. So what we've decided to do is this Esther's event in Branson for women. And we'll have so many speakers talking about amazing topics and really building into the lives of our young women today. So we as women need to mentor the younger girls. So I'll show you the little flyer on it. It's called Resilient Bravehearts for such a time as this. And you can go to our website, braveheartworkshops.com, and register today for the event. You don't want to miss this amazing event with women from all over the world coming in for this, and we'll build into the lives of women. So we'd love to have you in Branson, Shelly. I hope you and your tribe of women will flock to this, and we can just really build into the youth today. So with that, I can't wait for the audience to learn about little Shelly growing up, and tell us your life story from little grammar school, junior high, high school, all the way through.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Starting way back then. That's amazing, Jill. I just want to give so much love and props to you for the good that you're doing in the world and the lives that you've changed. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So little Shelly grew up on a farm. So I love everything about farms, and 636 acres, I think, is the size of the farm. Full-time farmers, my parents were. Learned to drive when I was about 5 and continued to learn to drive larger and larger equipment. I was full-time running a tractor at 11 years old, and that was my summer job.
What did you guys farm? What was your farming?
We were alfalfa. So
okay.
All alfalfa, which alfalfa is the green that you cut to create hay, which creates bales of hay for cows and horses and all animals, I suppose. Started born in northern, just about as northern California as you could possibly get, next to the border, Nevada and Oregon and California. There's a little tiny cowboy farming town called Cedarville, which has a decreasing population of 862 people right now. And about 7 years old, my dad had a feeling that was a prompting from the Lord, saying that the spring on this farm is going to dry up. And since the spring was the entire farm was ran by this spring, of water from mountains in the Warner Mountains. 100% of the farming depended upon that. That's the decreasing population now. So is a water issue. So 1977, 76, 77, my parents started shopping for farms, and they're in their early 40s at this point. And my dad's dad was had something called Forrester's Flying Realty. So they climbed in his airplane and flew over a few farms in the Washington Columbia Basin area. Columbia Basin is the eastern side of Washington State. Everyone thinks of Washington as the green side. That's more the kind of the coastal Seattle side, but the eastern side of the state is all 100% farms. So it's set up with canals and ditches that a system that completely irrigate the entire area, and it's gorgeous. It's really full of orchards and vineyards and all sorts of land and farms. And so I grew up in one of those small towns there. They flew over the location, and it was that confirmation from the spirit that said, this is the place that you need to, this is your farm. And so,
may I ask a quick question if you know the answer to this? So when this occurred, was your father able to sell the farm in California, even though the water had dried up? Was the land?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I just wondered, because I was going to say, oh, that would have been scary if he lost everything because he couldn't sell it.
100%.
Okay.
And that's the beauty of the spirit, right? It prompts you ahead. So he was able to go ahead and sell that farm, and they did just great. I think it's become more of a hunting lodge and location now than it is a farm. So house still stands. The S is still on the door of my room that I grew up in. So anyway, so that's kind of the place. The beautiful part of that is all 7 kids married within an hour of that farm. So we all found our forevers about within an hour of the farm. So Brett and I now have been married about almost 33 years. We have 5 kids and 6 grandkids. So our 6th is going to be born in a couple of weeks. So the farm became our livelihood there, just as mom and dad were about to start making money as farmers, which is really rare. We had a humongous problem, and it was in the form of Mount St. Helens on May 18th, 1980. So Mount St. Helens exploded and completely covered that farm that was just in this position to create a wonderful livelihood for our family. Everything kind of went down the tube. Spring hits really early in the Columbia Basin. So by May, you're ready to actually cut that first crop of alfalfa. So it laid down. That alfalfa was ready to be swathed, is what it's called. It's ready to be cut. And it just piles of ash just laid it flat. It was a time again of masks. There was mask shortages then because we were breathing in this ash that was 3 to 4 inches deep, and absolutely crazy. I was 9 years old when this happened. School ended. That was the last day of school, and my sister was due to graduate that year, and there was no graduation. So they still graduated, obviously, but being the youngest crew at the house, we have kind of 4 younger kids and 3 older kids, or 6 years between the 2 kind of groups in my family. So the younger group, we were shipped off to California to my grandparents for the summer, so that they could clean up the farm. And there's just too much ash to breathe. And so the older siblings stayed home to help kind of clean that up. And it's a crazy story. It's the reason that this story that I'm sharing is the reason I own the company I own. What happened next was my parents went into bankruptcy. Here at the moment when they were about to make money, everything flipped and they lost everything instead. Is horrific experience because of the tragedy of hope, and excitement for, as you grow a business, you want to obviously support your family. And
Well, I find it uncanny almost. Not, I don't know if that's even the right word, but to connect the dots. Here, God the Father, I'm going to just say that, God the Father for me on my show, saves your father and mother from bankruptcy in California when the water dries up, with the vision that the Lord's bringing them to this new land, which would bring prosperity. And then, like Job, it completely is destroyed. And here again, it has two dynamics of stay in California, go bankrupt, go to Washington, have prosperity, but end up in bankruptcy.
And, we don't know the answer to that story until COVID hits. And my dad is 84 years old and the full answer comes through. So what happens next is, like I mentioned, a full bankruptcy. They were able to keep a small portion of their farm and became dairy farmers. It kept 132 acres. And really that move became the prosperity that Dad was going to have, which he wouldn't have had he not have lost the rest of the farm. So my entire life, the mountain, as he said, the mountain was always seen as wrecking things, which now, as we were sitting, honestly, during COVID, having virtual church one Sunday together, and he said, you know what? It was the mountain that blessed me, not hurt me. And I couldn't have seen that because they were able to start a dairy. They, at 81 years old, they sold their dairy. They had 1,000 milking cows, which set them up financially for the rest of their life. And it will also set up multiple generations below them. But it never would have happened had the mountain not exploded and wrecked the farm. The farm wasn't the answer. The dairy was the answer.
Wow. So from that time, 9 years old, until the cleanup, how old were you then when the dairy farm started? Was it like when you were 10, 11? How long did it take for the cleanup and then the beginning of the dairy farm?
I was 15.
So almost
Yeah,
6 years of despair, despair.
Yeah.
And so in that despair,
Yeah,
in that despair, Shelly, what did your family go through? I mean, emotionally, sustainability. How did that play out?
My parents love each other, and they still love each other, and they are very, very happy. But at that time, I watched hardship happen, and in such big ways. As a 13, 14-year-old, I sat in court and watched people rail on my dad and try and, take every single thing from him. And yet, Mom and Dad found a way, to stay married and stay together throughout that really horrific time. At this time, the older kids are graduating, they're going to college, they're leaving, some are serving missions for our church, like massive things are happening. I'm growing up, I'm now 16 years old. I've got, these duties of bottle feeding and milking cows now on top of my sports and athletics and, and all of the things. I was junior miss and I was ASB president and, all of these things. And we, had this farm anyway. So it was a massive journey between the time that the mountain blew in 1980 and 1987 was the official start of the dairy.
Wow. Well, I'm so sorry your family went through that and the pain that you must have been going through in court watching your father being really brutalized, probably by the banking system and, wanting to take everything.
It was tough. You have your heroes in life. My dad's my hero, and you watch anybody, tarnish that armor and it hurts a bit, so, but, now life is like that. It takes a journey to, you have to walk the journey to understand it all, right? It's hard to really understand in the middle of it, like what's happening. But now here, 80, Dad is 80, 85 now. And, he's sold his dairy. He bulldozed out his, they kept the land and the house, still living in the house that we built when we moved there. And he built an airstrip, bought himself an airplane again, and my dad flies about every day, 85 years old.
Wow.
So,
and is mom still with you?
oh, mom's still with me. Yep. I'm headed to see them actually tomorrow. I fly up there to spend a week at the farm. So,
Wow,
yeah.
that's amazing. So other people bought the farmland and are doing stuff with the farmland, but dad has his home still on a parcel of the farmland. Is that correct?
So yeah, 636 acres, and we were able to keep 132 acres of that parcel and build the dairy on that 132 acres. So
But not, but
over
not,
time,
but now he sold the dairy, is what you said, right? He sold the dairy.
he sold the cattle,
Oh, the
kept
cat.
the land,
Okay, okay,
kept the land. Yep.
okay, okay. So now, where do you and your husband live?
So we're in Idaho Falls, and my husband also is a farm kid from just down the road. Like we mentioned, that we all met our spouses right there. So cute farm kid from a neighboring town that didn't have a high school, and they shipped those cute boys up, and I chased one of them down. So he was the one of the stars on the football team, basketball team, all the things, and we met when we danced our first dance at a church dance. Actually, when I was about 14 years old. 15 years old, I was pretty smitten by him, and then wasn't allowed to date until I was 16. So we didn't go on any official dates. But he would show up at my house when I stunk like that dairy, like, and we would go riding horses, and we would go change water, and we would go do all the fun things. And then finally, he graduated ahead of me, went off to play football for college just up the road, actually, and up the road here in Idaho. And he came home and took me to our first date, was homecoming in high school. So that was kind of the beginnings of it all. He graduated, I graduated. He went and served a mission we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He served a mission in Wisconsin, was gone for 2 years. I wrote him letters for those 2 years. And by the time he got back, I had caught up to him in school. He had done a semester before his mission. I'd done a semester by the time he got back. And then we were married and continued our education after we were married. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, and I have this vision in my mind of being in the barn, and with the hay rolls, where you jump down and have fun. I mean, it's just, I can just imagine as kids growing up with the barn. I don't know. It's just I guess I watched too many movies.
Well, it's kind of like that, honestly. I had a colt born on the farm when I was 14, in 1986, actually, is when he was born. And I was training him, so I was learning how to train a horse and all this. We had a few horses, and I had one of our customers for our farm had an Arabian horse farm, just like probably 10 or 20 miles away, 10, 15 miles away. And these were fancy horses. Like, they had the #1 Arabian stallion in the world. And I had this little frumpy farm mare, like think of like a mutt dog. Like, that's exactly what she was. And we hauled her down to the farm, to the horse, and they breed her to this super fancy horse named VP Prestige is his name. And I have got Misty, and she's this little black thing. She's like a Welsh Appy, whatever else cross, So she has this little baby, and he is gorgeous. He is half Arabian and half mutt, right? And so I raise him, and he about the time that I teach him, all the things, I'm so anxious to ride that by the time he's really ready to ride, he knows when I say walk to walk, when I say trot to trot, when I say lope to lope. I've way overtrained him because I'm so excited. So there was this day when Brett came to visit, and it was one of my first rides on his name was Mistige. So Misty and Prestige became Teej, or Mistige. And Anyway, so there's that beautiful fairy tale moment of me riding my newly broke colt and Brett on one of our other horses and us riding through the fields at the farm. So
So
your vision isn't quite far off. Yeah.
yeah, Prince Charming taking you on this journey. That's so cool. Well, a girlfriend I met, her name is Abby Moreland, owns a farm in Montana, and she is trained in the modality of habit finders, and so she does leadership. You would love this. You got to do a retreat at her home. She does leadership events with her horses and teaches you. And it was so weird, Shelly. When I went, I do retreats. I'm a meeting and event planner, and I had my retreat there this week. The week I did it, I get a phone call while I'm there with my attendees that my father, who was 94, had gotten rushed to the hospital, and he had collapsed after he found out my sister, who was only 68, only had a few days left before she died of pancreatic cancer. And he collapsed in sadness. And so my sister died. My sister died on September 28th. My father passed on September 30th of 2020. And I'm at this horse ranch for leadership development. So when I got the phone call, of course, the attendee says, Jill, just fly back to Chicago. And I'm like, no, I want to stay. So I'm sharing this because of your horse story. And so I walked past the barn by King, and King was the type of horse who really did not connect with you unless he was ready. And I walked past King, and he was in his barn, and I kind of leaned in and I just said, King, I'm so sad. And King came up to me like this, and he let me like hold him, and I cried. And then he'd come back in his barn, and then he'd come back up like this, and then he'd go back in his barn. So he'd come forward, and then he'd come back. And I really connected. And, I had never connected with horses, but I could tell that God had me there for a reason to start my grieving process. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that after your horse story. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, they do. The horses are so intuitive. So tell us then, so you meet Brent and he becomes your Prince Charming, and you get married and have 5 kids. So where does this journey take off? I guess I need to ask, so did Brent, for his career path, did he stay in farming, or what did Brent do? Did he go into farming?
No, Brett.
Mm-hmm.
So Brett is he is a chemical engineer. So we not quite enough land for all the kids to stay and farm. So he was the oldest in his family and headed off to get a degree. And he's a chemical engineer by trade. We were in Washington for the beginning of his career, and then we're transferred to Idaho. In Idaho, they decommission all aircraft carrier and submarine fuel for the U.S. Navy. So that brought him here and us here. And then we've stayed here. We were here 17 years now, I guess. He's still working at what they call the site, the Navy nuclear facility. And I started Executive Networking Events and run our business from home. So
a lot of people have no idea what your company is. So take us on that journey of how it started and then how it's evolved, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it actually started on the farm when I was young. And I remember, we were probably in the midst of those court trials and still trying to farm the land that we were about to lose. And I remember standing on the swather, the outside of the cab, have this little landing where right before you walk into it. And my dad and I were both standing there. And he said, Shelly, business is about relationships. And I thought, I there's no one here. Dad, I don't know who you're talking about. Like, I can look that way and I see no one, and I can look that way and I see no one, and I can look that, and there's just like no one. And I really didn't understand. But what I learned later was, they went into bankruptcy, and obviously in a bankruptcy, you owe nobody money afterwards. But instead of living that way, they actually went to every person that they owed money to and said, I'm sorry, we are going into bankruptcy. I cannot pay you, but I will pay you back. And even though they had zero financial obligation to any of, the Napa Auto Parts store or the fertilizer company or the, any of the vendors that they would need, they needed those relationships to open their dairy. So if they would have burned all of those bridges with the loss of the farm and away from all of that, those relationships, then who would have supported their growth as they moved into their new business? Well, I didn't know that until later, that those conversations, that Dad had gone to every business and said, I will pay you back. And within 5 years, they had paid every person back, even though they owed them nothing legally. So when I learned that, and as I started growing different businesses, that really has always been the heart and soul of why I do what I do. And it's because business is about relationships. So I started Executive Networking Events after growing my first membership locally. It was a networking group. I did not own it. I was contracted to grow it, and it grew pretty rapidly. I fell in love with the relationships built, the business done. We opened a nonprofit because of those relationships. We have something called Operation Christmas Magic, where we take Christmas into about 6 countries, and it's spreading across the United States. But it all started because of those relationships that were built. And then our city, like, buildings were built and business was done in such a beautiful way. So I was like, gosh, this is it. Like, watching business owners connect and create cool things is what I love watching and doing. And I have a passion for and a gift for gathering cool people into one space. So I decided in 2016 that I would go bigger than just my local community, bigger than my state, and bigger than my country, and start connecting the world of business owners. Not having any clue how to even find you, Jill, like, you're in our community, like, not having an idea of, lead generation or how to sell a product. Didn't even know how to take a card online, didn't have a clue. So I traveled all over the world learning from the best minds in business on lead generation, on membership growth, on growing an email list, on Facebook ads, on all of these things. Like, how do I do it's not, it's not fraught without despair a little bit. Like, that's a very expensive learning curve. If you've ever tried to grow a product online, it's a very expensive journey to go down. And we had some quick wins. Thankfully, we had a membership that grew quickly in 2016. It did open originally just for women in business. And one of my original members was a publisher out of Australia, and she actually became the publisher of all 3 of our books. I don't have our Operation Christmas Magic book here, but she said to me, she's like, Shelly, she was a speaker for one of my events. She's like, Shelly, let's do an event together. You help them network. You help everybody network and all get their stories published. And I was like, well, that's a fun idea. Let's publish everyone's story at an event and share, they're good. So we decided, or she said to me, I'm going to show you a picture here. She said to me, but let's do it at a castle in Ireland.
Oh, wow.
And so,
yeah.
So together we rented Chrome Castle, and the Earl and the Countess of Chrome Castle still live there. And it was the Earl's family that actually built the castle 300 years ago. And it's absolutely a beautiful, amazing place. We did publish our first book there, and then we went back. I rented it again in 2022, and we published a second book and launched that book from the library of the castle. There's all of the authors, and that's called The Art of Risk and Reward. So the idea of connecting business owners and giving you guys the microphone and sharing, what do you do? Who do you serve? Who do you need to meet? And just those 3 things, millions of dollars of deals have been done. What do you do? Who do you serve? And who do you need to meet? And so that's kind of the heart and soul of everything. And again, it starts way back on that tractor with Dad, that business is about relationships. And if we take the time to invest in a conversation and in listening and thinking through, okay, that's what you do. That's who you need to meet. Who do I know that I can introduce you to so that you can continue to grow? We now have a global community. We've got, and I think you're going to give away a free link to let people join us. We've got about 8,200 at this point of this broadcast, 8,200 business owners, executives, coaches, and consultants. And we host free networking events every week. And then we have paid memberships above that, and obviously do our fun traveling and all of that together too. So I was kind of the beginning of it all, though. It really started on that tractor with Dad. Like, business is about relationships, Shelly.
I absolutely love your story. And I'm not going to say it here online, but when we get done, I'd like to tell you, I cannot believe how much we are so much aligned. The alignment is amazing. God never ceases to amaze me how he connects me to certain people. I love it. I love the castle. There is a castle in Pennsylvania that I'll connect you with that you may love to do an event at. It has 20 some bedrooms, and it's got 3 pools. It's really, I'll connect you with it.
Love to see that. I'd love to see
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
So this, I can't wait to hear what your secret you'll share. So
yeah.
this group, this is the 2022 group. The people in front of the castle are members of what we call our inner circle, and that is our paid membership. And then we have our free membership as well. So yeah, it's so beautiful, this castle. They only use half of the castle. The other half is kind of, I don't know what happens in the East Wing, but the West Wing is amazing. I do have a funny story though, that when we were sitting there in the castle in 2019, the Countess shared a story that she hadn't shared with the Earl yet, and that she had gotten lost in the attic one time because they had only been married like 6 months or so when we went to when we rented it the first time. And so she's sharing this story about, he had people that were looking to rent out the conservatory for a wedding or something. And so she didn't want to interrupt the conversation. She goes, "Oh, I know. I'll just go up into the attic and I'll go through the attic and I'll come back down through the East Wing and come out." But she's like, "But I went up there and I got completely lost." And she's sharing this story with us in front of the Earl. And he's like, "Darling,
I didn't know you were lost." That is so cute.
That's the cutest story.
Well, we'll definitely.
They also share, sorry, this is another funny thing. They also share another thing that's really hard to tell which lights are on in the castle. So the easiest way is actually to go outside and look at the outside of the castle at night and say, "Oh, we got to go up and shut that room."
Oh, we forgot to turn this light on. That's so cute. Well, I'm going to flash to your bio so people, and on the bio here, I have a couple of links here to Executivenetworkingevents.com, and then the Facebook group. I think I have it right. I'll make sure you also email me to make sure I have it right to put into the link when I put this into YouTube and Rumble. This gets aired on Rumble, on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And then I have other social media sites. So make sure that you like all those pages, everyone, so that you can see this and share this out to everyone that you know. So, Shelly, I am so blessed to get to know you better and to connect the dots of story. When God told me to start the Connection Show, it was right after all my events got canceled because I'm a meeting and event planner. And so it started off being called the Connection Show with the tagline, "Renew, Restore, and Reconnect in Community." And the purpose of the show was to interview people like yourselves to give you a platform to share your business and then your links so you could make money. And it's kind of funny. I'm 69 and I'm retired, Shelly. And so I did all this just for the glory of God, and I did not care if I made a dime. I just wanted to help others make money that needed to work and support their families. So my first testimonial was a girl who had was a VA, a virtual assistant for people. And she said after her program aired, she had to 2 months later hire 3 more assistants. She got that much business. So it was really cool. And so it blessed my heart to know that the show was helping women and men, anybody could be on it, to grow their business. And then after a year, the Holy Spirit told me, now, Jill, now that we have an audience, I want you to change the tagline to the Connection Show, Inspiring Hope, Health, and Healing, which was about hope in Him, health of our body for the Holy Spirit, and healing from busyness, anxiety, not good enough, body image issues, all those things that we go through. And this time God told me, now I want you to focus on people's story, because story connects people to the person. And once they're connected to the personhood, then they might want to do business with the person and what they do. So he showed me a different way to network was connecting with the person. So anyway, thank you so much for connecting with the audience, because to me, when I get to know you, I want to work with you. That's just how it works.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I'd love to help your audience however I can. We do have some free memberships that you can get involved in, guys, and get connected and build some relationships. I think I also gave you a free 30-day offer as well to attend our high-end events. So that'll get you in for free if you wish. That's called Club 114. You're welcome to look into that if you wish. Jill, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you better, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks, everyone, for joining the Connection Show. Have a wonderful day.